I wanted to make a video. It's a little bit vague, but I think it'll come together at the end. I believe that there is a way of being, and that to be infers certain things. And there is a way to be in which you are not being. There's different ways to be. There's incomplete, there's complete, there's somewhere in the middle. I think most of us are not being. And not in the enlightened sense of not being. We don't know we're alive. We think we do. We're told we're alive. We check our pulse. We pay taxes. The evidence suggests we're alive. But we don't feel alive. The mundane, the everyday feels a little bit empty and repetitive and lacking of substance. Well, there is no substance. At the end of the day, it's all just stuff floating around in nothing. But there's still feeling. You're still required to feel something. That is the deal of this arrangement. You are going to feel things. But we become numb, and we have a very narrow range of emotion. And we get comfortable in that narrow range because we feel protected by it. But I believe that the range of emotion is nearly infinite. And that if you are able to realize the infinite, well then these little petty emotions you're feeling now are child's play. They're really primitive and basic. They're like the RBG, red, blue, green. But there's so much more. So we live in this spectrum of being alive. And some people go from nothing to something. They get an inkling that there's a sense of being alive. We just can't seem to hold on to it. And that holding on is a son of a bitch. Because every time we get something good, or something that feels good, we want to hold on to it. But we can't. There's no holding on. There is only being. And ultimately non-being. And the great teachers sort of suggest, somewhat obviously, that really the end goal is to not be. That by not being, you encompass all of being. You almost precede it in a way. And I'm not here to tell you that I've reached that level. I wish. But until then, we are kind of haunted. We're haunted by the feelings of mundane life, the repetitiveness, the fear, the longing, the emptiness, the disappointment. I think that these can be overcome through understanding, but a deep understanding. It's not just reading it on a page. Reading it on a page only gets you so far. You have to feel it. And when people write, or when people speak, they should be trying to convey a feeling. There's nothing else that's happening with speech except to convey what it feels like to see the color blue or red. This is what it's like, and I am talking to you about what it's like. And what it's like to overcome fear. And that's why people who proclaim to believe in religion, who are, literalists, in my book, those are atheists. Those are atheists who are seeking the comfort of certainty the same way that an atheist is comforted by the certainty of a ruler. You can measure a foot, and that is certain. And if you read the book, it says so-and-so did this, and that makes it certain. But you're not understanding anything. And being a materialist isn't really conducive to understanding, because it tells you how. It never tells you why. And we, unfortunately, or fortunately, only seem to be satiated by a why. How isn't good enough. How gets you so far. How pays the bills. But why sustains you. And so, on the path from leaving this pain of mundane life, you need to start answering some whys. And you need to start reading not to the letter of the law, but to extract from it the truth that doesn't exist in this world. Because there's no truth in this world. This world is an illusion. It is Mara. But there is a sense of meaning that doesn't come from here. Meaning is as alien as Prometheus. Meaning is in of itself a being that we communicate with. And when you experience the feeling of God, or the feeling of, I think God is more direct, but when you experience these other subtle feelings in you, there's a communication happening with meaning, but we're not speaking its language, and so we're not understanding it. All we're getting is just the one way. It's a one-way street. We're not talking back. So if fear is coming and you're just feeling it and you are in its grips, you aren't really communicating with it. You're just awestruck by it. And I use fear as an example because I think that's the one that most people have experience with, and it's one that most people would like to do away with if they could. And I think you can do away with fear. Now, it's not the same for everybody. Not everybody is going to be able to get rid of fear like that. It's what makes us unique. But there is a thread to pull. And the thread is the same thread that ties everything else together. It's understanding. And in another sense, if you turn understanding to the side, you'll find on the other side, on this side, it's love. And on this side, it's truth. And on this side, it's life. These are all synonyms. But our left hemisphere loves to divide things. When people say, oh, we're left-brained creatures, they say that that's the logical side of the brain. But I view it differently. I view the left side as the separator. That being left-minded, as our society is in a lot of ways, or at least the sciences, it's to gain understanding by cutting things down to smaller and smaller pieces and separating them and putting them in a petri dish. What does this quark do when you shoot it off into space? What does this little amoeba do when you put it in a dish? That, to me, is what the left brain represents. But it's incomplete. It doesn't lead to knowledge. It doesn't lead to truth. It leads to observation, which we already have the capacity to do. You have eyes, you have ears, you can feel. That is observation. But the right side of the brain, which is attributed to creativity, I see that as the opposite of the separator. It is the integrator. And that's why you're able to create things with the right side of the brain. And you come up with all kinds of fanciful ideas. And the unification of all kinds of things that sometimes don't make sense in the real world. I think that's the counterbalance to the divider, is the uniter, and you're oscillating through life, putting together and tearing apart to know this. And that's a really long tangent, but it's to say that fear can be understood by both sides of the brain. Even though fear is an emotion, you can understand fear by picking apart the things that are causing the fear, or isolating the incidents of your life where you believe fear to have taken hold of you. But then you have to understand the other side of fear, which is that it doesn't exist. Because when you break everything down to smaller and smaller pieces, nothing actually exists. It is an illusion. It's a concept. It's a representation of something that we can't really understand because we're limited in our understanding. And ultimately, fear, particularly fear, I won't speak to anything else at this point. Fear is a reaction. It is, as some say, an adaptation to circumstances that occurred to us, and we decided to hold on to the fear to protect ourselves, our well-being. And eventually, it corrupts us. We're holding on to it too tightly, and we don't understand it. Fear can be overcome through understanding. But remember what I said about understanding. Understanding is one face of this multi-sided object, which includes truth, it includes love. And I find personally that fear is obliterated by love. I shouldn't say obliterated. It is transmuted by love. Because understanding is love. And understanding fear is like pouring love on it and disarming it and transmuting it into understanding. You're taking fear as a concept and you are integrating it into understanding, which can become love, which is being, which is the all. It is what holds this show together. Why do we face fear? What is the event that triggered the fear? Why? What is hate? What is hate? Hate is a form of resentment. And I think hate is really the feeling of being upset and resentful over not being loved. You hate somebody else because they don't love you, or don't love you in the way that you want to be loved. And you can apply that to as many different circumstances of hate as you want. People want to be loved a certain way, and they don't feel that love. And there could be an ideology in between that separates them from the other person. But at the end of the day, hate is resentment over not being able to love or be loved. And people who mistreat you or abuse you, in some ways, they're doing it out of love. Because if they didn't care, they'd just leave you alone. Wouldn't they? Why accost you in such a way? Why not just walk? Go away. Pay them no mind. People stop you and they get in front of you because they want something from you. And what they really want is love. And in many ways they lack this, but they don't know it. And so if you obtained your feelings of fear from individuals, I won't name who, you can just come up with it on your own. You have to seek to understand them. And to understand them is to love them. And to understand and love them is to understand that they are capable of loving you. And in some ways they do love you. They're just corrupted by themselves and don't know how to express it. They express it in a way that doesn't compute to us. We register it as hate. What could drive somebody to want to hurt somebody else so bad? It's a desire. It's wanting something from somebody. And at the end of it, it's all just love. That's what they want. And that doesn't mean that you have to love everybody unconditionally at all times. We're not perfect. We're not built that way. Perhaps it's possible through enough practice. Maybe. But fear does not have to own you. Fear is a lack of understanding. Fear, there is a time and place for fear. If a bear is chasing you, maybe it's okay to be a little bit afraid. If there's a snake coiling up at your feet, maybe that's okay to be a little bit afraid. But to be afraid of other people's opinions, this is something that does not exist. It is a fantasy. It is a fiction in your own mind. And even if you're right, even if they are upset at you, or you're going to say something and you know they're going to react a certain way, there's no reason that you should be afraid of it. Right? If you know that something is coming, why be afraid of it? And if you don't know that it's coming, why be afraid of the unknown? There's no situation in which fear is either legitimate or helpful. If it's unknown and you end up getting hurt in the situation, well, now you know. It's what life is. But it does not require fear. And I could say this until my face turns blue. And some people will not get it. And that's okay. You have to get things on your own. And you have to be intentional. What is it that you want to do with your life? Do you want to live in fear? No? Well then, what do you want? Do you want to rid yourself of fear? Make that your goal. Make that your decision, and you take the power. It's yours to have, to get rid of fear. It's yours. It's shared with life itself. But you don't need to take fear as this unchanging thing like death and taxes. It is a fiction of your own mind. And there may be things that exist out there that we don't understand, and they might cause fear in us. And there might be people that say things that are really mean and cause fear in us. But that's because we are internalizing it. We are taking in this meaning from outside, and we're bringing it in, and we're filling ourselves with it like an empty glass. You are not going to enjoy being full of fear. So instead consider, is there something else you can be full of? Have you thought about that? What would it look like if you took this multifaceted object of understanding, of truth, of life, of love, and filled yourself with that? And it's as much yours to fill as it is life to come and fill you. It's a joint venture. I don't want to take this in too many other directions. I just want to say that you have control. You do. You might not think so. And you don't have to fight fear. You don't have to fight anything in life. There's no such thing as fighting. There's no need to fight. You can choose to understand. If you just put your energy into understanding, you will know that understanding and love are the same thing. And truth and life, they're all synonymous. And that you can apply this and you can become this, which flourishes and it multiplies, and it can project your life from you instead of you projecting fear. Because that's what a lot of us do, is the fear that we have inside of us, it consumes us, and everything on the outside becomes fear, and our life story becomes all about fear instead of understanding. And understanding is love. And if you can write your story from love instead of fear, which requires understanding, your story changes. If your past changes, your present changes, and your future changes, because now you are not driven from fear, away from fear. You now understand fear, and you are free to go wherever you want. Thanks for watching.